Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And we're going to throw some more kerosene on the Dungeons & Dragons bonfire. The backlash against Wizards of the Coast, the current rights holder of Dungeons & Dragons. We've talked about this in many videos. Elon Musk adding his 2 cents to the situation, saying that Wizards of the Coast needs to burn in hell for their treatment of the original creators of D&D, most notably Gary Gygax. Mm-hmm. And we know that people in charge of Dungeons and Dragons don't think very highly of the men that created, and women to some degree, that created the original game. They think it's like their game now. Mm-hmm. And for the 50th anniversary of Dungeons and Dragons, they effectively ran the original creators through the mud, said they were a bunch of misogynists and racists and, not so many words, but said that the work that they put out was problematic, right? And that they were just, a bunch of white dudes from the Midwest and they didn't know any better. And,
well, it's problematic for today's audience where they go looking for things to be triggered by.
Right. So we're going to trigger you some more. We're going to go out to Facebook. There's a post by Frank Menser, who is the gentleman responsible. Mostly you'd know him from the D&D Redbox set, this was my introduction to Dungeons and Dragons back in the day. Very, very famous. And yeah, Wizards went so far as to take the obviously white male warrior and turn him into a thick brown woman to celebrate the 50th anniversary.
Yes.
Of the game they did not create, by the way. Wizards, just so you know, Wizards of the Coast did not create Dungeons & Dragons, guys. They acquired it in the late 90s because TSR, the actual creators of D&D, made some very bad business decisions. And then Hasbro acquired Wizards of the Coast because they wanted Magic and Pokemon cards. And they got D&D for free. Mm-hmm. So
basically, it was thrown in there.
It was thrown in there. Buy one, get one free. Then they lost the Pokemon cards, and that's a whole nother thing. But they're stuck with D&D, and they're trying to milk it now. So let's talk about this.
Can you milk a dragon?
You probably, I don't know.
They don't have nipples.
I'm sure there's art of that. I'm sure there's like Rule 34 art of that. So let's talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. You'll get a woohoo if you do.
Woohoo!
Go out to clownfish-.com. Help support the reef. We've got exclusive content out there. You can buy merchandise out there. And also check the same thing out on clownshishtv.locals.com. Thank you very much. So yeah, this is the Redbox set. Very famous. This is one of the most famous pieces of D&D iconography, I think, in the history of the franchise. This was many people's first introduction to Dungeons & Dragons, myself included. And Mr. Frank Menser. Mr. Frank Menser was primarily responsible for that Redbox, as I understand it. And he's talking about the situation with cancel culture and D&D. And again, this was recently, I guess, resurrected because Elon Musk was going after Hasbro. And,
Sorry.
I know, right? Saying that Wizards of the Coast should burn in hell because of the disrespect shown to the original creators of Dungeons & Dragons. And then he was, I think, joking, asking how much Hasbro costs. But the flip side of that is he joked about buying Twitter before he bought it. And he also has a robot named Optimus.
But here's the thing about Hasbro. I mean, I appreciate the Optimus, but here's the thing about Hasbro. It's like, is it worth spending money to buy it?
I don't think so. I think Hasbro is like a knockoff of Disney at this point.
It's just like throwing good money after bad. But anyway.
They really don't have a lot. Most of what they have, very little of it was their own in-house IP. It was like stuff they acquired. Even you could argue Transformers was basically just a Japanese toy line that they rebranded.
It was smart, though.
It was a smart move, and Marvel Comics, made it work. But
Marvel Comics made like G.I. Joe work too, but that's a whole other story.
Right. If they just put G.I. Joe out as like generic action figures without a storyline, I don't think it would have sold.
But anyway, back to the point.
Anyway, yeah, so we know this whole drama. We've got multiple episodes talking about this. Sorry,
that picture though.
And now we have Mr. Menser weighing in here. And he's responding to Ernie Gary Gygax Jr. That would be one of Gary Gygax's kids. And, he probably knows more about D&D than most people because he was there. He was there while his dad was working on it, right? So anyway, this is what he reposted. And again, this is on Facebook yesterday concerning the Arneson, Gygax, and cancel culture. This keeps coming up. Here's my summary. He said, throughout human history, all games have a winner and loser. Competition is baked into our genes. In 72 to 74, a couple of mediocre middle-aged white guys created a pastime, Game is Problematic, in which all the losers are imaginary and everybody wins. That's unique for the first time ever, at least in 20,000 years of competition. Of course, we'd all been playing this sort of thing since childhood, Cops and Robbers. Gary, not Dave, came up with a rule system to describe it. There's a whole story there. I would love to find out the full story because I have heard multiple stories about Gary's involvement, Dave's involvement, Dave being pushed out. It's a whole thing. That's neither here nor there. The system was a war game variant since that was their hobby. It was not well presented, but was the best they could do. Anecdotes about I couldn't understand original D&D or frequent. I myself had to see it played before I understood. And this guy who worked on the Red Box, and the Red Box probably did, I believe, a better job of explaining the game.
Well, that might be why, because he looked at things he had trouble with and tried to make it a little bit easier for others,
Right, because he came into it a little bit later, right? He wasn't there.
I never understood it, and that's fine.
But the Red Box was fantastic, like, as a kid, because I couldn't really understand advanced D&D, but I got the Red Box. I'm like, oh my God, they just like walk me through everything. I was like, yeah.
That's why they probably did that way. But anyway,
yes.
Don't know that for sure, but I might guess.
Jeff Parham wrote but did not create a set of wargame rules called Chainmail. It was a collection of ideas from members of a wargame club, another one being Gary Gygax. Jeff wasn't a good writer or developer, so Gary worked it into publishable shape, and a game acquaintance in Indiana published it. These rules were purchased and used by Dave Wesley and Dave Arneson in a Minnesota club. So you're getting some backstory as what happened. He's leading up to something.
Okay, I hope so, because I'm very confused.
He is leading up to something. So Dave initiated the Special Spark single character play. In board or miniature war games, you control an army with defined specialists. His Bronze Team war game reduced that to single characters, and the scenario combined teamwork, a castle, and the first hints of role-playing. Arneson focused on the cooperative aspect and expanded on group efforts. So he's showing it like how everybody kind of contributed to early D&D.
Got that.
Right, including dungeon exploring. Age of Sail wargaming was a hobby of his, which is a team effort. He authored Don't Give Up the Ship with Gygax and Mike Carr. Okay, and that became one of TSR's first 5. Dave couldn't write very well, being an idea guy with poor communication skills. Gary Gygax was primarily a wargamer, also a good game developer, and became a publisher. He wasn't good at business. Again, back to the beginning of the video. TSR,
yeah,
how they wound up at Wizards of the Coast, and trusted other gamers too quickly. All of his works are complex, and except for his variant on the original D&D game, hugely expanded into AD&D, overestimated what players were willing to devote to them. The core gamer hobby mentality. Okay, here we go. This is what we're getting to.
Finally, okay.
He's trying to explain to you where these people came from, what their backgrounds were, right? Like, they weren't savvy business people.
No.
They weren't professional writers. They weren't, marketing people.
They weren't thinking like, oh my gosh, in how many, 50, 60 years, a bunch of idiots are going to come along and find fault with everything we did,
Right. So none of those involved were professionals at this, nor were they good writers. They all lacked the skills needed, organization, talent for business, and more. They blundered into this by accident.
Relatable.
So why the character assassination? I ask Wizards of the Coast and others. These were ordinary people with ordinary flaws, and they didn't seek fame or power. It seems that 21st century Americans want to destroy all their heroes. I hope that's a passing fad. And here's one point to which I take great offense. The following smear is on the legal download of my D&D basic set Redbox. Again, I believe one of the finest pieces of tabletop role-playing gaming ever created. I challenge these jerks to point out any issues with my work. Anything rational, that is, objecting to the very term race is silly. Mm-hmm. Hasbro chose to repeatedly emphasize this. They pontificate with every vintage product, but try to dodge responsibility, screaming about what may be there in a small number of items, but actually isn't in many cases.
Well, they're trying to cover their butt with the cancel crowd.
Yeah, it's exactly it, because that's who they pander to.
Because you have these people that literally spend all day looking for things to get pissed about. Like, and then everything is under scrutiny and has and we've even seen like the whole thing, like with the Critical Role doing that one campaign, but the one girl was mad because it wasn't Asian enough, because it didn't represent her as much as she thought it should. These are the people you're dealing with. They are so, triggered by everything. They are so, nothing is enough. It's, there's no reasoning with these people.
No, and again, this is the crowd they cultivated. I think it was actually by proxy. I think it was Critical Role, and again, I'm not blaming Matt Mercer for it, but Critical Role, I think, brought in a whole nother subset of players that
I
had
agree.
different expectations.
I don't think it was their fault.
No.
I think that they started trying to pander later, and then it wasn't enough. And I think that's when they started probably realizing that, no matter what we do, do what we want, because they're going to take anybody off, everybody off anyway.
Right.
But anyway, back to this.
That's virtue signaling and cancel culture personified.
Yep.
Doing so, they have deliberately alienated many thousands of D&D players and stifled communication and progress. Virtue signaling, the act of expressing opinions that align with popular moral values, typically to claim good character, often preferred over effective action, includes conspicuous endorsement of political issues and social and racial justice, fed by social media and endorsed by celebrities. A form of cancel culture, excluding those who disagree, producing echo chambers. Classic example. Now, this is what they put on all of their vintage TSR products currently.
Yes, I've seen this before. Go ahead.
We Wizards recognize that some of the legacy content available on this website does not reflect the values of the Dungeons & Dragons franchise today. Some older content may reflect ethnic, racial, and gender prejudice that were commonplace in American society at that time. These depictions were wrong then, and they're wrong today, and fuck you, Hasbro, for even calling attention to it.
But here's the thing that makes me mad. Some of the stuff they're putting out now, people have problems with.
Yeah.
Why are, where's your,
the Monkey Minstrels. That was pretty recent, right?
Well, yeah. Where's your, now wasn't the orcs, they're Mexican now or something?
Yeah, the Mexican orcs.
I mean, where is your,
Thaco the Clown was, a joke, quote unquote, a joke, air quotes. This was a direct dig at, I believe, the old school gamers, the grognards, because Thaco was prevalent in second edition to hit armor class 0 as part of the play mechanic, and a lot of 5e players don't like it very much. It's too hard. It's too hard to math it out. But it was a direct attack. And so you shouldn't have been surprised when they decided, hey, the white male warrior, on the red box is now a chunky black woman. Surprise reveal. Although they already revealed that character years ago in an action figure, an officially licensed action figure. It was just a dude with a mustache and a mullet.
Yeah, no, but they want to change it to be, what they think this audience wants, because they're desperate for money.
You did not make Dungeons and Dragons, WotC. You did not make it Hasbro. Again, you acquired it, and now you want to turn it into something else. And all they're doing is they're just using the D&D name because it has brand recognition, but they're basically selling a totally different game. And I've said this before, like the D&D that everybody thinks they're playing because they're watching Stranger Things, and you're like, oh, they're playing D&D.
Yeah, no, not the same thing.
It's not the same thing. It's definitely not the same thing. So I don't know. Good luck with all that. But when you've got pretty much, I can't think of a single TSR alum that has had glowing words for Wizards. Some of them have even gotten into lawsuits.
Well, when you keep being told that you're a terrible person or whatever, everything you did was terrible, then you're going to get mad. Yeah.
So I don't know, guys. Good luck with that. But there we go. More kerosene on the fire. We're going to wrap it up.
Yes.
Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We'll talk later.
Bye.